Hello and welcome to part 3 of my attempt to create an Ancient Empires game that suits my likes and tastes. In this part, as I promised, I'm going to show you how I'm going to make a turn work. We've already looked at the map, we've discussed the two games that I'm taking pieces from to make this hybrid. We've shown how we, if we remember down here in Egypt, still set up actually, how we decided, how we work out how rich in resources and food, plus the population of any territory is. So the next thing to really is to do, is the turn. Well, I'm still working on this a little bit. I pretty much know what I'm doing, but let's just zoom in here a bit. Now these are the tokens that represent the 6 nations that come with the game of Conquest of the Empire, and they're the ones I'm using, obviously the troops. Now, to decide turn order, I shall simply roll a dice. It doesn't matter, 6-sided, 8-sided, it doesn't bloody matter. All we'll need to know is the highest dice roll has the choice of where they want to go in the turn order. And they might want to go first, they might want to go last. There's reasons why you maybe want to go last, so you can see what everybody else is doing. And also later in phases, you'll see why it might be advantageous to go later rather than earlier. And of course, whoever rolls the lowest, well, they ain't going to have a choice. They're going to have to slot into whatever place is left. And conveniently on the board, it's difficult to see from here, but I'll go up there, is if from the left, can you, where's my finger? Tell you what, why don't I just go there? You've got first, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth. This used to be alliances, but forget alliances, we're not doing that in this. It's just first, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, and that's where these tokens, that's where those tokens will be placed in whatever order they decide to go in. So that solves the initiative phase, who goes first, who goes last, etc. Now each turn is going to be divided into either 10 or 12 phases. Not fully decided on that yet. Playtesting will show what's best. And what I mean by phases is if I just move these tokens out the way and I bring this down. These are the phase markers that come with the game of the campaigns of King David. There's 17, and they're broken down, as you can see there. There are 2 build phases, 3 events, 3 harvest, 3 resource, and 6 action. What does all that mean? Well, the one what's most common is the action phase, and that is where you actually move, you do your scouting, and you actually battle. So there's more of them than anything else. The build phase, and there's 2 of those, that is when you have to pay for your upkeep of the troops you've already got. You've got to feed them and you've got to resupply them. At the current time, I'm thinking that for every unit you've got, except for generals and your leader, because they're just one single guy each, but for your units, each one requires 1 food and 1 resource to keep it supplied. So you've got to make sure, for instance, the army we've got down here in Egyptus, we need 5 of each, 5 food, 5 resource, because we've got a cavalry, 3 infantry and a galley. And they all need maintaining and they all need feeding. So there's 2 of them. I'll skip the event for now. Harvest phase, well, that's pretty self-evident. All the territories you own, remember our discs, you will receive that amount of crops, and it will get recorded on the food resource chart. Resources, exactly the same. It will get only that will get added up and added to the resource track. And finally, the events. Now, I've left the events because this is where I'm getting a bit woolly on it, because this is where I'm the only place where I may have to do some modifications of my own. For now, these are going to be fine. But basically, there are various tokens, and in an event phase, and remember there could be 3 in each turn. There's 17 of these phase markers, and if I'm only going to do 10 or 12 per turn, that means there's going to be 5 or 7 that are going to be left in the cup that aren't going to see the light of day for that full turn. So it's not going to be the same every time. Now you can see there you've got some ambush. That would be, for instance, it's slightly different. It does explain it in the rule book for the King David, but it's a different battle system to what I'm using. So for instance, ambush, let's just say, if you're attacking a country, the defenders will get to fire first, and the attacker will have to remove their casualties before they do their attack. Ineffective weaponry, maybe you lose 1 dice. Instead of rolling 3 dice, you just get to roll 2. Increased resources. Now you can play that on yourself, and your resources in every region you own go up by 1. Same next to it, decrease. You could play that on another player, decrease resources, and if he has an increased resources, he can play it on himself to negate that. He giveth and he taketh away. Decrease harvest is pretty obvious. You lose 1 from every your crops in every area you lose. Effective weaponry, you roll an extra dice. A troop revolt, possibly a revolt of your troops, refuse to fight, so you roll 1 less dice. Acts of God, that's quite interesting, and that involves the phases. But I'll more about the phases in a minute. And then there's 1 or 2 a royal death, or in this case a leader death. That stops you moving and fighting for a certain amount of time. There's other things like Hand of Fate, God's Intervention, Defensive Stalwart. Maybe you just get extra dice and that. I've got to work that out yet. Not fully sure how it's going to work. I'm going to use these chits for now, but my intention is to use a standard deck of playing cards, sleeve them, and simply inside slip a piece of paper or card with, whatever it is, troop revolt, and then explain underneath exactly what that means. Same with Act of God, same with Surprise, etc., etc. And then I can add my own, and it's also got the explanation without having to come to a rule book such as this and having to go through all the lists to find the one you want to play. Because some will only be able to play in certain phases of the game. For instance, the increased crops, you're only going to be able to play that on a harvest phase. You're only going to be able to play the increased weaponry or ambush, etc., when you're in battle. So you've got to, it's when and where you're going to play these tokens. Now a little bit more about this, the phasing. As I said, there's 17 tokens. Now, I'm going to draw 6 for starters. Let's assume that we're going to have, where can you see? It's near here. So we've got an action. Actually, I need 2 actions to start the very first round, so I'm going to leave the space there. A resource. There's another resource. There's an event. And there's an action. That's good, because for the very first turn only, the first 2 rounds will be action. Now let's assume that we're having 12 rounds, or 12 phases per round. You can see, all players can see, the first 2 are going to be action. You know that's going to happen on the very first turn of the game, but that's the only time you can guarantee. that's so people can move and actually do something and gather territories if they so wish. Then we've got resource phase, where you're going to collect resources, so the more you want it. And then there's another resource phase, which come next to it. Look at the draw. Then an event phase, where we're going to draw one of these event markers, which we can maybe play later, or on ourselves or someone else. And finally another action round. But the remaining 6 for that year will be placed face down. So you know what's going to happen for the first 6 phases, because you can see it. But you're not going to know what's going to come afterwards. And the only way you're going to find out is at 12, I think it is. The only way you're going to know is, let's come back a bit so you can see more, is once every player's had and completed the first action phase, we can take that away, and only then will we reveal the next phase, which is going to be a harvest. And that's the first harvest we've had. So there's a chance to get some food in. And so on. As one phase ends, we remove it and we uncover the next one, which I think is quite a neat idea. That came with the campaigns of King David. And I think it'll work pretty well with this. Yeah, a little bit of fine tuning, but that's what playtesting's all about, isn't it? This isn't going to be a commercial game, it's just for me. Just for my fun and hopefully for you to enjoy as well. And to be honest, there's nothing here to stop you creating the same thing if you like what you see. If you've got the base game, or you know you're capable of doing the same as me. For the tokens that you're missing, make your own. It's a do-it-yourself. Use what you've got job. It's not rocket science, is this? So that's the movement, that's the turn, how to decide turn order. Each turn is made up of 10 or 12 phases, and you carry them out in the order that they come in. There is an event, a couple of these events, which actually allows a player, if he plays it, to remove 2 of them tokens. He can go into the cup where these 5 are left, or 6, whatever it is. He can look through them and he thinks, well, I want another action round and I want another harvest. So I'll get rid of this resources one because I'm going to struggle to, I don't need 2 in one go, etc. Or there might be one where it's a building. He thinks, well, I can't afford the upkeep of my troops yet, so I'm going to get rid of that and put something else in. There's a couple of them. I think that's that God's intervention or hand of God or something. So little things like that which can change this up. So you think you know what's coming, but some bugger steps in and he takes 2 of them away and puts 2 others in. And that's your plan shot out the window, isn't it? So, yeah, the plot thickens. The ideas keep coming. And I think the next thing to do really is, in the next part, is to actually begin the playtest. Because the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? I'm not going to know, it's all theory at the moment. So I shall set up the board and we'll have a playtest, and I'll invite you along and you can watch it, and we'll see how it goes. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment. I'd love to read what you have to say and any ideas or thoughts. And I'll speak to you in the next one.